So see, for us, obviously growth's been crazy over the last 1.5 years. We went from, doing about $500,000 of annual run rate to now we're close to touching about $8 million of run rate just in the last 14 months. So almost grew 16x in the last 14 months in how we've scaled. And I think it's growing at a very crazy scale. We're eyeing double digit $1 million play as we look to scale over the next year and a half. And the best thing about our business is when obviously now in the 1 to 10 stage, it's growth stage for us. And we've seen models like Pepper scale brilliantly well globally, where we've seen TopTal, which does 450 million ARR, where they're basically Pepper's model but for product and engineering folks. Or there's a company called Turing, which is growing crazy and about touching $100 million ARR from 8 in 2 years. Now, scale like that, right, proves that the model fundamentally has that ability to grow. And at the same time, it also readies ourselves for the next stage of Pepper, which is, imagine us growing so fast just in India alone. And now we plan to take Pepper globally with a lot of focus towards building out in the US. In fact, today itself, 20% of our business is already global. There are over 350,000 plus users using Pepper marketplace and a software business across 145 countries already. So we are seeing, and that's the power of a truly global product, right? And that's reflected very clearly in the kind of team we've built. Out of 150 people now at Pepper, we have a 60-member product and engineering team, right? And that DNA towards solving any problem through product greater than process, greater than people, is one of our core operating values.
Hi, this is Siddharth Aluwalia. Welcome to the 100x Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, I'm super excited to bring Anirudh Singla, co-founder and CEO at Pepper. Pepper is building the world's largest content marketplace and SaaS tools. You would be surprised to know that Anirudh is only 23 years old, but comes across with so much maturity, has built a business of scale, which he'll share in some time, of multi-million ARR, and employs 150 people full time. Welcome, Anirudh, to the podcast.
Thanks, Siddharth. Very happy to be here. From being an avid listener to being here is quite a good journey. So thanks for having me here.
It's a pleasure knowing and seeing your journey very closely for the last 2 years, right? It makes me so proud to see you evolve into such a great founder. Although we'd love to discuss, to the roots of how you started. So if you could share your growing up, your family, how you got into engineering, and then, what made you start Pepper.
So Siddharth, I come from a Baniya family. My dad's been into business. He's into the steel import export in plate space, and he's an entrepreneur who built $100 million business from scratch. So I've seen him see that kind of scale and gone through ups and downs, and so very entrepreneurial in nature from the very start, very enterprising. Always wanted to do something of my own. Worked hard to get into bits pilani. Now, when you go into colleges like these, you realize there's 900 people who are equally smart or smarter, and you're trying to figure out this one good thing you're at that other 900 people aren't. And the only good thing I could come up with was I could write really well, and that translated for my love for and from reading. And interesting time after my grades tanked after my first semester of college, I realized I couldn't be a McKinsey consultant anymore, and that's where I started finding out media houses to intern. A lot of times a first year student wants to intern at a very good place. At that time, reached out to TOI, Hindustan Times, and all the top publications at that space. None of them took me in. Like engineering undergrad, why would they? And then your story was an up and coming media startup which is scaling fast and really wanted to get in. So I ended up cold mailing 5 7 of the top executives 5 7 times. They finally got so frustrated. They said, okay, you come to Bangalore and we'll figure something out. Went to Bangalore 2017. This is summer 2017. Interesting time in life. was trying to finance my own education at Bits, and the goal was to earn 2.5 lakhs in 2 months. And never ever earned a single penny in life. Started freelancing for a lot of US based job talent marketplace platforms like Fiverr, Upwork, Chegg, and so on. Now, most of the opportunities you had to bid and were only available in US timing. So, you used to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, freelance till 9 a.m., 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. your story, and 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. again freelance. Did this 18, 19 hours, 2 consecutive months, ended up earning 2.53 lakhs, and learned two things in life: persistence compounds, and B, as a country, there's just so much talent out here, but there's no talent marketplace per se. And the last talent evolution that came out of India was probably Infosys TCS, which was Indian tech talent for the world. And I realized that there's a massive, populace of creative population of creative people that could be harnessed into a talent marketplace play. And at that time, Geo had just come in and felt content will be massive. And yeah, so thought, why don't we build a content marketplace platform? Came back to college, excited few friends, and got started. So yeah, that's my initial story of starting Pepper.
And where's your hometown?
I am originally from Delhi, born brought up 20 years there. Last 3 years I've been in Bombay.
And how did you decide to set up Bombay as your base instead of Bangalore?
So I think the content creative and the marketing advertising ecosystem is largely based out of Bombay. So traditionally, all advertising marketing agencies, people who, in a sense, we were competing with against, were also based out of here. So it just felt like a more natural fit. And so yeah, so that's why we thought, it'll make more sense to build this out of here.
And when you decided to build a marketplace, right, what were the first few steps that you took? Uh, what was the founding team like along with you? If you could describe the 0 to 1 journey.
So, there are four of us who started Pepper. And I think for me, it was, finding the smartest friends I have and bringing them together. I think one good thing I think I can pull off is being able to bring great, good quality people together for something. Interestingly, none of us were from tech. So while we were engineers, we didn't know how to code. So for the first 2 years of building the business out of college, from our second year to fourth year, we built the business on Google Sheets. Now, Google Sheets has a 2 to 3 MB memory, and the reason I know that is we almost reached that. And we had automated 100,000 line items on a Google Sheet, making it literally rendering it so complex to use that that's when we realized that, this is a business which will take it to a million content pieces, like a million play, which means we need to build out a product to drive scale in a space like that. So I think the most interesting challenge was, how do you build this out frugally? And interestingly, we bootstrapped the business till we raised our first round of funding in November 2019. By the time we had completed our third year of college, which was May 2019, we had done 1.75 crores of revenue till date, all bootstrapped, didn't take money from anyone else. Everything was profitable and revenue driven. So we understood fundamentals of building business really right. And at that time, we got a call from Y Combinator. We had a final round interview. We didn't get in that time, and that's when we decided कि यार अब तो करना ही है. And that's when we decided to move to Bombay. So yeah, that's how we went about it. And then today we have an amazing founding team. So we have Himanshu, Adesh, and Kishan as three key founding team members, and I and Rishabh are the co-founders. And I think they have an amazing and highly integral role to play, and all of them continue to play very key roles in the company today.
Dear listeners, before we dive further into the podcast, I would like to thank our sponsors, Prime Venture Partners. Prime is the first institutional investor in category creating tech startups like MFind, Dozy, Planet Sparks, Neo. Prime is now investing out of its fourth fund of $120 million. Today, I have with me Sanjay Swami, Managing Partner, Prime Ventures. Sanjay, Prime has played a key role in developing the fintech startup ecosystem and the financial services ecosystem in India. Can you elaborate on that role, and how does the next few years of fintech look like for India?
So that fintech in India is a never-ending opportunity because people are either unserved, underserved, or poorly served. Whether you're in a small business or whether you're a consumer, there is always a better way of accessing financial services. Three areas that we look at and that keep us still very bullish about the sector. One is, just better customer reach, better customer service, better customer experience for laser focused fintech solutions. Second is verticalization of fintech, whether it's for logistics, whether it's for health, education. And the third is infrastructure plays where companies are actually now fintech enabling the incumbents, whether it's a bank or an NBFC. So these are three areas that we are still very, very bullish on. And of course, not to mention the entire Web3 crypto space, which we see is again going to be a huge opportunity here.
Now, moving a little forward, right? If you can share, right, how did you all decide to split equity among yourselves? Because it's very hard decision to take very early on.
Yes, no, I think, see, at the end of the day, it is very linked to, uh, like, there's no playbook, really. There's no formula. As much as people would want to hear that, it is very linked to your roles and responsibilities and your skin in the game, right? At the end of the day, see, long term wealth creation is based on terms of equity, and that's where it's extremely important to realize how strongly is one in for, right? And even before talking about equity for us, early stages, right, and you talk to me about the initial team, right, is the reason behind why the team is in for this has to be extremely solid, right? uh, while I'm all up for wealth generation, but at that time, if the fundamental reason behind joining an early stage is not to build that impact or that kind of scale, or truly believe in the mission and vision of doing what you're doing, right, then it's a very different game you're playing. And that's why I think, at least for the founders, the skin in the game is everything and absolute. And I think that also eventually ends up driving decision making in terms of how you want to go about splitting equity. And then obviously there is a lot of focus in terms of roles, responsibilities, in how one would want to do that.
Got it. And if you can share, right, how did you manage to raise your first round, right? How many cold reach outs you had to do to get that first check?
So I remember we reached out to, we cold mailed 80 VCs and angel investors at that point of time. Obviously didn't have a very large network coming at that stage, so had to mostly rely on reaching out on your own. And at the same time, there are a lot of folks and friends who were very kind enough for us to make some introductions to key folks. I remember there was a lot of hustle. It took us about 3 months to get everyone in place. We were raising 2.2 crores, which was 300K that time. And I think by the time we were almost nearing closure of the round, we were oversubscribed up to 5 crores. So we had a good fortune of choosing who we wanted to partner with. And that's where we were very key about, who we'd want to bring on board. And, Kunal, Rohit were folks who, we've always seen and learned so much from. And I think it was a no-brainer to get folks like these on board. And then we had, I think, 10 other folks join us at that round, and I think highly grateful to each one of them for believing 19-year-olds at that time.
And is it the folks from the 80 reach outs that you did? Who was the first one to say yes and be the lead for the round?
Yeah, in fact, so Shraddha Sharma from Your Story, we convinced Your Story to put in money. So Shraddha was the first check.
Okay. And then who became the largest in the lead for that round?
Kunal and Rohit led the round
Awesome.
from Titan.
Then you mentioned, and then you mentioned that you had to choose based on you had to overcome it. So how did you make that cap table, that how to choose the right set of folks, because they were all angels?
Yes, yes. See, I think when you're also talking about angels, right? See, obviously today it's become a lot about just brand names and introducing, but early on in your journey, you need people who can build fundamental value in your business, right? Who can afford to spend some time with you as well, right? There's no point bringing on board an angel who is just there for a brand value's sake, but does not end up spending that time you need to be able to grow and nurture, right? So for us, we wanted to get in people who could. The strongest value add we wanted from our investors was customer introductions. So we chose people who could automatically introduce us to their portfolios, who could drive maximize scale for us, because at the end of the day, the biggest ROI is customer ROI. And that's what was extremely important for us when you think about these things. Second was, people who could guide us with respect to building the right quality products, helping us understand what great looks like, and also some people from the marketing advertising ecosystem alone, right? For us to understand more fundamentally about the DNA of what that space was. So for us, this decision was very led based on who could actually spend time with us and who could actually give us utility. And we were very particular, right, that we want skin in the game, very clearly, because while there's capital, you need smart capital, right? And especially, I think last year was a time of lot of available capital at that time, and I think that's where, as entrepreneurs, and especially young entrepreneurs who are doing it for the first time, you need to know those first early people are going to be the gateways for the next success that you drive. In fact, Kunal introduced me to Dave from Lightspeed, and that's how Lightspeed finally came in. And I think your initial supporters are extremely important towards your next leg of journey, and I think that's something to remember a lot.
In how many months after your first round with Kunal that you raised the round from Lightspeed?
That was 8 months from then.
Okay. And but you didn't need to raise the initial round also because you, as you mentioned, right, you were at 1.5 CR in total revenue that you had realized till that point in time. What was the motivation? Like uh, your own expenses or runway was not the motivation.
Yeah. See, I think it is when you see strong product market fit, right? It's a lot about growth. And I think what we realized is this is a space which had to happen. Like, in a sense, pepper had to happen to the world. Then probably the world needing pepper, right? And that's when it started becoming very real for us, where we went from doing 5-6 lakhs of monthly revenue to, I think, 35-40 lakhs of revenue when Lightspeed came in, right? I think a month. That's where we started realizing that truly we had to build strong moats with respect to product and technology, because this is a business which can go 1000x if needed, if you build it for that kind of scale. And accelerating go to market and driving more technology led plays here became extremely imperative. So that's where we felt, the value for raising more capital.
Got it. And you mentioned you raised the round from Lightspeed. I believe that was a 4 million kind of a round that you raised. So since then, if you can share, right, that was a 0 to 1 journey till you reach 35 lakhs in monthly revenue. If you can share how the company has scaled since then, what is the current annual recurring revenue, and how many clients are you working with?
Sure. So see, for us, obviously growth's been crazy over the last 1.5 years. We went from, doing about $500,000 of annual run rate to now we're close to touching about $8 million of run rate, just in the last 14 months. So almost due 16x in the last 14 months in how we've scaled. And I think it's growing at a very crazy scale. We're eyeing double digit $1 million play as we look to scale over the next year and a half. And the best thing about our business is when obviously now in the 1 to 10 stage, it's growth stage for us. And we've seen models like Pepper scale brilliantly well globally. where we've seen TopTal, which does 450 million ARR, where they're basically Pepper's model, but for product and engineering folks. Or there's a company called Turing, which is growing crazy and about touching $100 million ARR from 8 in 2 years. Now, scale like that, right, proves that the model fundamentally has that ability to grow. And at the same time, it also readies ourselves for the next stage of Pepper, which is, imagine us growing so fast just in India alone. And now we plan to take Pepper globally with a lot of focus towards building out in the US. In fact, today itself, 20% of our business is already global. There are over 350,000 plus users using Pepper marketplace and a software business across 145 countries already. So we are seeing, and that's the power of a truly global product, right? And that's reflected very clearly in the kind of team we've built. Out of 150 people now at Pepper, we have a 60-member product and engineering team, right? And that DNA towards solving any problem through product rather than process rather than people is one of our core operating values.
And currently the team is 150, as you mentioned. Right.
Yes.
And what would be the total number of active clients right now, Anirudh?
Yes. So, see, till date, we worked with some 2,500 plus brands so far. On an active basis, we engage with 550 to 600 customers at this point of time. Just to give you a sense, in the last, we work with over 70 out of 85 unicorns in the country. We work with over 100 plus enterprises at this stage. So, large brands like, we're partners to large companies like Adani, Amazon, Google, HUL, PNG, HDFC Bank, and large companies like these. And we have a very fundamental belief, right, that every company today is a content company. Every business is heavily investing in content marketing. So for us, the most exciting part is literally every customer is a prospect customer. Uh, of late, we've been focusing a lot on fast growth SMBs, mid market, and enterprise customers, where we see larger term contracts and values coming in. Like we recently just closed a late seven figure multi-million dollar deal with one of India's largest enterprises, and it's probably one of the biggest B2B startup enterprise deals that someone's closed in recent times. And I don't think someone would have thought of that it's going to be a deal by a business like ours. And I think that's where, the key part about how we think about our business is the time for a business like this has come, where today what Salesforce has done to sales, Pepper can do for content, where we can make a content ecosystem where we become a one-stop shop for doing anything everything content uh, for a business, where we have a marketplace offering enabling managed services for brands at scale, along with our software stack that enables companies to be able to manage all forms of content production, distribution, and analytics from one platform itself. I think together the marketplace and the software stack make each other 10x more powerful, and I think that's something that's working really well for us.
So at the end of the spectrum, you have a managed marketplace, which if you can share, right, the kind of contribution it has to your revenue, and what's the SaaS product contribution has to your revenue.
I think SaaS is still early on, about 15-20%, and growing on really fast in the overall side of scheme of things. And I think huge believers that together marketplace and SaaS reinforce and make each other 10x more powerful. So that's how we look at our business as well.
Got it. So the managed marketplace business is currently 80% of, or I would say a little more than that, of the revenue. So why was there a need to focus on SaaS when this is already scaling at 16x?
Yes. No, marketplace obviously has grown beautifully, but what we realized is the way the world's moving, technology is going to play a key role in our industry. And for us, what we realize is what software does is it augments the ability to make our talent 10x, 12x more powerful. And that's where we feel that long term investing in software based approaches are also key towards driving strong business growth and impact for all relevant stakeholders, be it the freelancers where software makes them 10x more productive, or for customers where cost and speed is extremely critical. And that's where software approach allows them to drive more scale for themselves. So I think looking at the impact it is able to bring on both sides of a marketplace is where it just felt natural that software can augment the ability of a business to grow much faster. And that's why you'll see not only Pepper but a lot of SaaS enabled marketplaces start to bloom as concepts, where you see every verticalized SaaS opportunity has a marketplace component to it. And some of the best managed marketplaces will end up building software stacks that allow both user acquisition as well as drive long term product retention modes in the business.
And when do you imagine, right, the Pepper would touch, let's say, 100 million ARR milestone?
December 2024.
Wow. So you have already working backwards from that date.
Yes, and the question is always, why can't it be earlier?
Awesome. So what gives you, that kind of an entrepreneurial energy and drive to make things happen at this space? Are you still working like 18 hours a day, and is it still sustainable?
No, I think don't work 18 hours a day. I sleep for 7 hours a day, which is good enough. And see, I think obviously, right, what got you here won't get you there. Hustle doesn't scale. By the same time, what scales is that mindset of thinking big enough. And I think that's where building a great quality team makes a lot of sense. I think that's what's something a lot of entrepreneurs don't invest early on, right? You need to truly be able to build a great transformational team that attracts likable talent on its own and helps shape what a company is. A company is not one person. A company is the team, and that's where at Pepper we've invested in building a phenomenal team. Rohit, who heads our product, built Freshdesk, Freshworks' largest product. Alok, who heads our translations business, was heading customer experience at Oyo. Akash, who looks at our text category, was one of key Unacademy leaders. The quality of team that we've invested in, right, reflects everything about the business, and that becomes a multiplier effect in my scale. So for me, the goal is not to work 18 hours a day and drive that. The key for me is, can I build 10 more founder DNA people into the company who think like founders, right? And I think that's what makes all the difference, and I think that's the maturity every founder also needs to build in, which is and they've had a great post about this, and probably this is more applicable at Pepper stage right now than very early stage, which is, when do you decide to become the chess player than the piece on the board? And I think that's a maturity sign that companies at our stage probably need to think about.
And you also mentioned one thing, right? First, that you got in advisors like CRO of Atlassian, and then set your bar very high that you want to get your CRO like that. Can you share more about that?
See, I think fundamentally a lot of my talent principles come from, see, we're not building a family, we're building a high quality sports team. And I think that's what Gaurav also says. That's what Doug Leone from Sequoia actually says, right? And when you're building a high performing sports team, people don't realize that a the fundamental assumption is we're already talking about the top 1% talent, which is the talent density is already probably 11 out of a million people. That's not even 1%, that's actually much less. And most people don't realize, but 80% of the time it is coaching, and then 20% of time is where you shoot and shine, right? And that's where, when I think about talent, it is about a building out a very high quality team, and second is how do you even go about onboarding that talent and bringing them and ramping them up for that peak performance and that high quality ability. So just to give you context, our team in Pepper over the last 6 months has interviewed 8,000 people, right? And that's when we went from about 60 people to 150 people in the last 6 months, right? So every person who comes on board, and I've been in most of the last rounds. So for us, that DNA or the talent density has to be extremely sharp. And that comes with when you see what world class looks like. So if I wanted to understand what a great operating person looks like, I'd probably speak to Abhinav Sinha, who's Oyo's global CEO, and understand what great looks like, and then calibrate and think about bringing someone for Pepper versus similar for revenue, right? And then when you see that, right, the benchmark changes, and I think the benchmark has to keep changing at every different stage of the company. Probably the revenue leader I needed when we were at 2 million versus now is fundamentally different. And that's why you also need to be able to hire talent that can upskill and outgrow itself. And that's why you'll see a very key, in fact, we're one of those companies who have our culture deck out on our website, on our about us page, if you have time to go through that. We talk a lot about talent, especially with respect to bringing on board talent at this stage. You need high ownership, and at least at Pepper, ownership can be given or taken. And for me, the goal is very clear when, especially, we're bringing a senior leader, right? Pepper's hired a lot of senior talent in the last 3 months. My goal is very clear. If you're thinking anything less than 3 years, don't come, because we're not going to be a fast growth company that'll hyperscale for 2 years and then flat out. We are building a long term generational company, and it takes time. And I think that long term mindset's needed to build truly generational, high quality, fundamental businesses.
And if you can share, as a CEO, how do you spend most of your time in a week? How do you structure your time?
See, I think 55-60% of my time is spent on hiring. I think as a CEO, I've learned more to pitch to prospective folks than investors now. So, and I think that's also is how clearly I can talk to you about how we think about Pepper today. So, a lot of my time goes in investing in talent and bringing the best people on board, and always remember that the best talent is never actively looking. So you have to be the one to reach out to them. So spend a lot of time doing that. uh, I think remaining, especially with a lot of our focus now going in expanding into new categories. Pepper was earlier into just content writing, but now we've expanded successfully in graphic design, language translations, and we soon move to plan into video as well. How do we think about category expansion? And especially we've ended up closing large enterprise customer deals at this time. So how can I play a role in driving and scaling that, becomes extremely imperative. So I think that's what I've been spending a lot of my time on. Now a lot of my focus is towards starting to build out the US market. And that's where I think Anirudh 2.0 comes into picture. So that's a new learning curve and growth journey I'm really looking forward to.
And what are you doing for that?
I think for us, obviously, we started building out a US team, and we had a very high quality set of. So interesting thing is Pepper Type, our AI based content writing tool. We built basically to drive top of the funnel for the marketplace initially. Now that alone has some 200,000 users today, and the archetype matches a lot with marketers who are prospect customers technically. So we are seeing CMOs of large companies like L'Oreal, Unilever, Walmart, Macy's use Pepper Type, and now we're driving this product-led growth demand to drive commerce for the marketplace. So that's a key active channel we are getting going, and then obviously we're building out other demand generation functional capabilities to scale up the business.
And when you talk about the talent density, right? Last year we saw salaries which never have been have seen in the industry. How do you match those, right? Because the best talent will always be overvalued, and it should be, because they are doing work of 10 people at the same time.
So see, I'll tell you, two rules of life on talent. Right, one is the best talent will cost you 2x, say 5x of your time. So that's there. Second, I think with respect to the market, we at Pepper have a very clear policy. We won't overpay, right? And market correction always comes. Technically, it's already started to come in. So we're going to see this year a lot of that coming into place. And when the music stops running is when all things come down. So for us, our goals always been, and this is something even applicable for engineering, by the way, where engineering salaries are just rock high, and that's why for us the focus has always been that we won't overpay, but wherever we see great talent, we will overinvest. So for me, talent is never thought of as a cost center, but it's always an investment center. That way. So that's at least how I look at these things.
Thank you so much, Anirudh. It's been pleasure speaking with you, sharing your journey, and knowing you for the last 2 years, seeing you grow. It gives me immense pride to see, how you are growing the ecosystem along with you as well.